I think he wanted you to go ahead, Michelle. I know he broke up there.
Okay. All right. So, good evening. I think many of you already know who I am, but I was asked to give some highlights on projects and initiatives that we currently have underway or have recently completed as they relate to the city's environmental programs and long-term sustainability plan. So, I outlined in the briefing paper one of the biggest and most ambitious projects that we have is the transition to 1 day per week collection of refuse, recycling, and composting. This is what we refer to as the one and done program. So residents will have the refuse, recycling, and composting, if they sign up for it, all collected on the same day, hence the one and done. So the target date for that to start the transition is Earth Day, which is April 22nd, 2022. Based on our program outline and the city's willingness to support such a large-scale transition, the Recycling Partnership awarded the city a grant for $112,000. This funding will help defray some of the costs of the purchase of the recycling containers and provide educational and promotional information to our residents. Our city staff will be working with the Recycle Partnership to create a comprehensive outreach program beginning in February and carrying through until after the April kickoff. Public Works has redesigned the collection routes to make this change possible. Ribera Pacific, along with the Recycle Partnership, will work with the city to provide media coverage of this undertaking. All toters that will be purchased through Ribera Pacific are under the Omnia U.S. Communities contract pricing. Ribera will provide the staff to deliver the new containers and will provide a tracking inventory. Each resident will receive a new refuse and recycle container and information about signing up for the composting program. The new containers will be a different color, and the refuse or the trash containers will be black, and the recycling will be blue, specifically using the ocean blue material that Ribera has. The reason for that is, one, we want to catch everyone's attention, and two, that is the consistent colors throughout the United States for recycling is blue now. We will use all available means to get this information to the residents: Facebook, Recycle Coach, the newsletter, HOA contacts, the city's website, and the last, face-to-face push being at the biannual electronics, recycling, paper shredding, green drop, and EPS recycling events, April 16th. So as I highlighted in the briefing paper, the benefits are numerous to undertaking such a large endeavor. The 65-gallon toters with the lift bars are compatible with the lift currently on the back of the collection truck, thereby reducing the risk of employee injury. The no-hands approach to refuse recycling and disposal will reduce the risk of collection crews coming in contact with refuse and recycling. The ocean blue containers are made from plastic sourced from the waterways, and it's a nice way to tie into the city's plastic bag ban that was effective January 2022. And by standardizing the containers, they all have secure fitting lids, and that will reduce wildlife from having little parties in our refuse and recycling. And it is financially a sound and sustainable savings for the city in the long term. Right now, the city is paying $70 a ton for refuse going to our landfill, and it's rising. The cost to dispose of recycling is $27 a ton, and the cost of composting is $25 a ton, because the city is able to ride the Prince George's County contract with MES, and they've been very gracious about it. So we take our composting there, and that's a huge savings for the city. And that is a sustainable savings because there's legislation that has passed both the House and Senate and is now part of the Maryland Constitution that directs the extraction of organic material from going to the landfill. So the best way to make this transition as smooth as possible is to exactly promote the organics curbside collection. This program, the curbside organics, greatly reduces the amount of household refuse that's currently collected twice per week. It will support the city's commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by targeting the reduction of methane gas emitted by the organics currently going to the landfill. So this also positions the city to be at the forefront of the state legislation, House Bill 264, Senate Bill 483, which amends Chapter 439, which requires food residuals to be separated from solid waste and ensure that food residuals are diverted from landfills and composted when possible. And that it passed in October of 2021. It will be effective January 2023. So the state is already moving towards this. And by doing what we're doing now and really promoting our organics, we will be ahead of the game. We expect this change to generate positive conversations about the city's environment. Maybe that's a little hopeful, but I'm an optimist. To conversations about the city's environmental programs and long-term sustainability plans. Part of what we envision is all of our departments working together and creating a focus point for our residents to find the green in Laurel. That is pretty much the first thing that I think I had in the briefing paper was the one and done. You may have noticed the big bellies, which we have enhanced our existing big bellies, and we will place 5 additional units around the city before the end of February, weather permitting. We're working with Parks and Rec to do some concrete work for us. With 3 additional units placed in high traffic areas by summer. Public Works has already ordered those. What's cool about the new units, in addition to the fact that they're wrapped in a really nice wrap, I like it, the new units have message panels, and that we will use to promote city events and initiatives. Older units will be placed in less traffic areas and parks. The importance about Okay, she's letting me know that UPS drove by the house. So, the older units be placed in less traffic areas and parks. What's cool? Okay, I think it's over. Is that what we plan to do is use messaging panels to promote. To promote events on the north side and the south side of the city. So as we put the Okay, sorry about that. The pros and cons of virtual meetings is that your puppy decides to let you know someone's walking down the street. But what we can do with the messaging is that we can promote events on the north side, the south side initiatives. The farmers market on the south side will have we'll have the new units over on by Cypress and the community center. So we anticipate that that's going to be a very dynamic way of engaging the residents and letting them know not only can you recycle and here's a place to get rid of your trash. It is hands-free. There's a foot pedal, so that you don't even have to touch it. And as you see, the message panels, we can use them to draw people to other sides of the city and other initiatives. So that's going to be really cool. And the other thing that you'll see around as changes is Blink. So Blink came to us through our connections with Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments and the Electrification Coalition. Blink will provide public and municipal EV charging stations throughout the city. We worked with all the departments, ECD, Public Works, the mayor, city administrator's office to determine, and Parks and Recreation to determine what areas would be a good fit. The agreement is in the final stages, ready for signing. And the first public unit will be located at 312 Main Street parking lot. We specifically chose that because it has not been paved yet. So we anticipate you'll see the Blink charging station there by spring. And according to Blink, we will be the first municipal project in Maryland. So that's something that we're proud of. The next thing that was not in the briefing, but is going to be a big, that you're going to hear a lot more about, is the school composting program in Laurel Elementary, Scotchtown, and now also, once again, in Laurel High School. Laurel Elementary is at 100%, Scotchtown 66, and Laurel High School has just come back on the program and is starting out with lunch trays. And this is all part of the city working together with Prince George's County School District and specifically Jana Levine. Our plan is to have Laurel Elementary recognized by the mayor and council during a council meeting, hopefully in February or March, with a presentation by the students. It'll be virtual, but live virtual, and on why composting is important and best practices for composting. And hopefully the administration, we can recognize all their hard work. The other thing that you will probably see if any of you sign up for Recycle Coach is that we have now also have a Spanish version. So if you go on and you put in, where can I recycle this? It is now bilingual, English and Spanish. And we're going to work on that and making it more dynamic, putting out more blogs about it. And there's a lot of things that we can do that we just don't utilize as much. So we're going to work on that. The Green Living resource page is up. It's kind of hidden because we haven't unveiled it completely, but we're working on that. And that is especially important as we're working with our businesses to get them on the plastic bag ban. So what I had, the mayor and I had talked about is highlighting them in Shop Sustainable Laurel. And so the first one there is Harris Teeter. Not only are they providing paper bags, but they have a lot of other green initiatives. So we're highlighting those businesses. It's a way to promote local businesses and to promote sustainable practices, and also to give the residents a place that they, for example, want to know where can I shop sustainable? What business can I give my money to that is really going to be conscious about this? Then that'll be their one place to go. I met with the Environmental Affairs Committee Chair, Mr. Cole, and I attended the first 2022 meeting. Our goal is to work with the committee to, one, assist the committee in achieving their 3-year plan goals, and also to create a subcommittee to support the city's final step in becoming a certified B city. We're also working with the Parks and Recreation and Economic and Community Development departments to promote the farmers market, enhancing the lot, the crosswalk, provide seating areas, and also working with the state to have the farmers market become part of the farmers market nutrition program and allow participants to use WIC or senior farmers market nutrition program vouchers. That would be really cool. And then we have the community garden. And I think that if we can get the community garden to work with the farmers market, to reach out to our seniors and all of our residents and promote healthy, good nutrition, healthy, organic material, I think that it would be a nice marriage. And the Green Living Calendar, I don't know if everyone got it. It has a new look. It's also on the website, so you can download it. I know that we worked really hard on that. I think it looks really cool. And last but not least is to continue to work with COG to proceed to phase 2 of the city's sustainability plan, which will include the creation of focus groups that will encompass all residents and businesses within the city of Laurel. The city's goal is to create, maintain, and enhance programs that support the ability of the city to meet the needs of the current residents without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And that was a working definition that COG had presented with Cadmus and the city in August 16th, when they did their final presentation. That was something that we had all worked on together. The plan will focus on 3 components: the natural environment or natural resources of our community, social connectedness among people in the community, including the education, skills, and health of the population, and lastly, the economic and financial prosperity of the community, planet, people, and prosperity. And the city, what we're doing is we are taking the approach of leading by example. So that is why it's important that we have the big bellies, we have the blink, we have the education that we're doing with our city employees about recycling right. We're thinking about, adding composting, trying to get EPS out of the waste systems, working with all the departments and highlighting the initiative of the Parks and Recreation with their neighborhood litter patrol buckets that they got from a grant. Also working with Parks and Rec when the Bear Branch Nature Walk will be available to our residents, working at the mansion to make it a green destination and to use sustainable materials as we draw people in from that side and from the north side, to work with the nonprofits groups in the city to work on the Patuxent River cleanup, to focus on keeping non-recyclables out of our recycling, and to keep our waterways clean and safe. I think and the mayor will tell you, other people will tell you that I can go on about this. I will not. I will I will stop. But if you have any questions, or if there's anything that I don't know, sir, if you think I left anything out that is important, but if you have any questions and I don't have the answer, please contact our city administrator or deputy city administrator, and they will contact me, or I will get the answer to you via Kim. Did I miss anything of great? They know me too well. They're like, okay, you can stop now. But
thank you for that presentation, Michele, Blair. We appreciate you. Moving on to Agenda American Rescue Plan. I'm going to start with Director Saylor.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Sorry.
Mr. President, you're muted.
My internet connection is a little in and out. I just heard you now. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, yes.
You have the floor. Saylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Cifizzari, our emergency specialist. She's got a presentation to update you on the use of the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. We have a presentation for you guys. Everyone can see that. Chrissy is going to start for us.
Great, thank you, Haley. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. We're here tonight with Haley, Michele, and myself on behalf of the American Rescue Act Plan, known as ARPA Committee, to provide the council an update. The estimated initial budget breakdown of 12.6 million was presented to the council on September 13th, 2021. This breakdown was a rough estimate prior to receiving applications from for-profit and nonprofit organizations. Haley, can you mute? Because I think we're getting some, thank you. The categories were created by federal guidelines to accomplish the following. So our revenue loss category was to strengthen support for vital public services. Premium pay was provided for fully vaccinated essential and frontline staff that delivered city services during COVID-19 response. Public health was to enhance the public health resources and needs through programs and services. Economic impacts was to provide financial relief to businesses, organizations, and nonprofits that were affected by COVID-19. Infrastructure to expand and enhance broadband or other qualified infrastructure projects. And then the administrative category to assist the city with costs associated with compliancy and data analysis. In September of 2021, Ordinance number 1985 was presented and approved by the council to authorize the mayor and the city ARPA committee to administer the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds that was established by the American Rescue Plan of 2021. During the same meeting in September, Ordinance number 1986 was presented and approved by the council to allow the city to appropriate the ARPA funds. And then after the ARPA committee reviewed the ARPA applications that came in from our nonprofit and for-profit organizations, we revisited the budget and gave this new budget breakdown on October the 25th to assure that we are addressing the community needs. So you can see from this graphic here how some of the categories were increased a little bit and then some were decreased to make sure that we're still fitting into the $12.6 million. So now I'm going to turn it over to Haley and she's going to cover a few additional slides.
Thank you. All right, so of the 12.6 million that was awarded by the Treasury for the first allotment of funding, approximately 4 million of that has gone directly out into the community. So some examples of these include going to LARS, funding a universally accessible playground, funding the apprenticeship readiness program, giving money to various food pantries, funding a COVID testing and vaccination program, and then funding our ECD's business grant program. Other allocations have gone to preventing and mitigating the spread of COVID. So some projects that were included here are the city's HVAC project, which is to enhance the safety of the ventilation system within city buildings, installing ballot drop boxes, providing staff with appropriate personal protective equipment to keep them safe. And then just some other allocations included infrastructure, such as the trash capture technology to mitigate the amount of pollution throughout the city, providing premium pay to employees, administrative fees, as well as revenue loss. All right, so on January 6th, 2022, the Treasury released the final rule, which is to replace the interim final rule, which was released in May 2021. So up until January 6th, we were going all completely under the interim final rule. But the final rule now that it's in place is supposed to provide greater flexibility and simplicity for administering funds awarded through the American Rescue Plan Act. So of the interim final rule guidelines, we were allowed to claim a specific amount of public revenue loss using this equation here. So Michele and her team had calculated that our public sector revenue loss through 2020 and 2021 equaled $2.8 million, which was taken from the first amount of the 12.6 tranche of money that we have received. So the final rule kind of revised that guidance. So instead of having to use that equation that was outlined in the previous slide, we are now able to opt into either taking what is calculated, which would then be calculated again for 2022 and 2023, or we are allowed to just take a flat $10 million out of the total amount of funds that we're awarded. This $10 million or whatever we decide to calculate using the equation would all have to be used for government services. But taking this $10 million does increase our flexibility for the use of funds. It also simplifies reporting requirements since various projects will just fall directly under the general revenue category rather than having to categorize them specifically in different expenditure categories. So it is just kind of a simplification of the reporting as well as the use. If we were to take this $10 million, we would still have about $5 million remaining from the second allotment of money for different projects and programs that are not related to the provision of government services directly. So moving forward, the ARPA committee would like to elect to take that standard allowance of $10 million, which would again provide greater flexibility for what we were able to use these funds for to meet the city's needs. And then going forward, we would then prepare an ordinance to go before council within the next few months that would update the spending categories that were outlined in Ordinance 1985. So that is all I have. Myself, Christina Cornwell, and Michele Saylor are here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? All right, moving on to agenda item number 3. Ordinance number 1994, an ordinance to amend the general operating budget and capital improvement program of the mayor and city council of Laurel, Maryland for the fiscal year July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and to provide an effective date. Director Saylor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So here we are again. This is our amendment number 4 to the FY 2022 operating and capital budgets. This ordinance very simply adds $90,000 to the state grant revenue category, as well as corresponding $90,000 to the budget of the Department of Economic and Community Development, excuse me. And the breakdown is in the second whereas. There's $50,000 for the farmers market site improvements, which would be, my understanding is permanent picnic tables and a permanent cover structure, as well as $25,000 for post-COVID Main Street marketing and another $15,000 for Historic District Commission guideline update. So that is all I have. The new total of the budget would be $49,705,015. And I can answer any other questions. No, Mr. Love is in a subsequent agenda item, and he could explain more about those grant opportunities.
Questions from the council? If the council is in agreement, the introduction and first public hearing on ordinance 1994 at the meeting 2022, 6 p.m. Moving on to agenda item number 4. Bid recommendation, farmers market lot improvements. Director Love. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Mr. President, Mayor, and City Council members. As Ms. Saylor had just mentioned, before you is a memo dated January 28th, 2022, recommending your approval of funds for the purchase of 4 permanent picnic tables and a shade structure to be placed at 378 Main Street, also known as the Farmers Market Lot. The department was able to use the U.S. Communities contract via the Department of Parks and Recreation, using the vendor Cunningham Recreation, who are out of Queenstown, Maryland, for the amount of $50,000. The city was awarded the fiscal year 2021 Community Legacy Program grant by the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development for $50,000 for this project. We respectfully request approval of award to the recommended bidder, Cunningham Recreation, in the amount of $50,000. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Director Love. Any questions from the council?
Director Love, I have a question.
Yes.
So this is just for the purchase of equipment. This is not for the whole project. Is there anything to address some of like the uneven ground and stuff that's there?
We're going to be working with Parks and Recreation is going to help us in beautifying and doing some things out at the site also. This is just for the purchase, and it will be the actual installation of what we are talking. The shade structure, we actually worked it out with kind of the engineer on what the flattest part is on the site to be able to place that. But now we're going to work in conjunction with Parks and Recreation on this.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Any more questions from the council? All right, well, if the council agrees, we'll award the bid at the mayor and city council meeting on Monday, February 14th, 2022. It's ordinance number 1993, neo-traditional overlay concept plan for Janoske property at 722 and 703. I have the Director Love speak. I'm going to ask the city solicitor, Larry Tubb, to speak on the process for our newer members that have joined this on the council. Larry Tubb.
Was that a request for me to speak on the process? I couldn't quite understand the chair, the president. Was that a request for me to speak on the process here?
I'd like you just to speak on the process of.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate it. Yes, we're here tonight to discuss an application for the neo-traditional concept plan. And of course, this is an overlay zone, which is allowed in the RT and the R55 zones. The subject property of tonight's discussion is in the RT zone, so this is permissible on this particular property. I think it's just important to understand that the council is being asked to approve the neo-traditional concept plan. And that's all, which is simply basically allowing the neo-traditional concept to move forward on this property. The details of the development will be dealt with through the subsequent applications for subdivision, but most importantly for the site and landscape plan, when all of the issues, many of which were raised by Mr. Love in his staff report, will be discussed and approved or not by the Planning Commission. I just want to make it very clear that this is simply a request to approve the ability of the applicant to move forward with the neo-traditional concept plan on this property. And you'll not be dealing tonight with any of the particular details of the site or landscape issues regarding this property. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Larry Tug. Director Love, I'll give you the floor as well, and then I'll see if the council has any questions after you speak.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, Mayor, and City Council members. Before you is ordinance number 1993, as required by the City of Laurel Code, providing legislation to approve neo-traditional overlay concept plan 924 to develop a 63-unit townhouse community at the properties known as 7222 and 7302 Contee Road in Laurel, Maryland. The applicant is seeking concept plan approval to develop a 63-unit townhouse community, which will include open space, recreation area with a tot lot, central gathering, sitting area, complete sidewalk system throughout, and stormwater management. Total amount of land to be used is approximately 7.6882 acres. Under the neo-traditional overlay, a project can propose modifications to the code for aspects of the development. The applicant is proposing several modifications, which include the minimum net lot area, minimum lot width, lot coverage, green area, and setbacks, which will be further addressed in later applications, as Mr. Todd mentioned. The applicant will be required to obtain a plat of consolidation approval, forest conservation plan approval, preliminary subdivision plan approval, and final neo-traditional plan approval from the Planning Commission. The applicant and their team would now like to make a presentation if they could, Mr. President, and thank you.
Sure. We have Eric DeVito.
Yes. Thank you,
You have the
President
floor.
Smith. I think I can share my screen. So I assume, are you all seeing my presentation right now? Should say Ribera Development Neo-Traditional Overlay.
Yep,
You are seeing it or no?
we are.
You are. Councilman Cole, I see you shaking no.
I'm seeing a screen that has the work agenda up.
Okay. Let's see.
You had a PDF up earlier, but I do not see it now.
Okay. Let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing, then I'll try sharing again. Let's see. How about now?
Yes, sir.
There.
Okay, so it should say Ribera Development Neo-Traditional Overlay. Great, thank you. Thank you again. I know some of you are familiar with this property. At least back last year in July, we were before the council for a rezoning of this particular property where it was rezoned to the RT zone. So this will be familiar to some of you. I know President Smith, Councilman DeWalt, and Councilman Sidnor were on the council, and obviously Mayor Moe were around back then. But I'll reintroduce the applicant and some of the members of our team. This is an application by Ribera Development and John Stamato. Some of you may be familiar with, has done multiple projects in the city. This is the Janoske property. I'm Eric DeVito, the land use attorney. Our consultant is Bob DePietro. The engineer is GLW, Tim Longfellow, Tom Zyla, and Kevin Foster. And our traffic consultant is Mark Keeley. I think all of those individuals are available tonight for questions if you have them. I don't know if Kim, you might need to make them active if we get to that point. But we will be before you again after we go to the Planning Commission. So I just wanted to give you an overview of the project so you can see what it's about, and obviously answer any initial questions you might have before we get the full detailed analysis at the Planning Commission and at the first hearing. The property was posted. I just wanted to, this is just proof of the posting of these hearings that we will be having. It's been posted the requisite amount of time. This is some background on the property. As I mentioned at the outset, it was annexed. I didn't mention that, but it was originally annexed back in 2014. I mentioned this when we were doing the rezoning that obviously came up. And then when we were at the rezoning this past July, the property was rezoned to RT. And at that time, if you may recall, it was part of the presentation slides then and my presentation then, we mentioned that we had every intention, the developer had the intention of pursuing the neo-traditional overlay at that time. It was always intended, this project lays itself out quite well. It has the front streetscape on Contee and Old Contee Road. And then there's a number of environmental features that are worthy of preserving. And so then what the neo-traditional overlay does is it allows you to enhance your site plan and development plan to preserve those environmental features, cluster some of the density up to the front and then to the rear, preserve those features, have some sidewalk and connectivity, and it allows basically this proposed concept to mesh with a lot of the newer developments that have happened in this area of the city, and I'll show some of those pictures later. So that's sort of the reason why the neo-traditional overlay. This is, I believe you had this graphic in the materials that Director Love presented, but this is just an overall site plan, and it hasn't really changed much from what we presented at the rezoning. This was always the intention. There were some modifications made based on comments we received at the rezoning. For example, we shifted the entrance down away from, we had some comments from the Islamic Center at that time when the entrance used to be in this vicinity. They requested if we would shift it down, and we said, certainly if the city's okay with it, we'd be willing to do it. So that is what's shown here. We accommodated that. We also moved the units here farther away from the Islamic Center based on some of the initial plans we showed because they wanted a larger buffer there. We were able to accommodate that. But otherwise, the streetscape, the landscaping is all similar to what we always originally intended. Up here in the top left gives you a sense of the streetscape with the picket fencing, the historic features, the brick fronts, the aesthetically historical nature of the units, which would be representative of what we think would happen here. The tot lot amenity here is going to be right in the middle of the property near all these environmental features. So to be a nice amenity, easily reachable by both sides of the community. This graphic or exhibit we're showing right now highlights all of the environmental features and green areas that we were talking about. Basically, some of the modifications that the applicant is requesting for the neo-traditional overlay are because of this. And what the end of the day is roughly 55%, over 55% of the site will be kept in green or landscaped areas. The darker green is actually just natural landscape areas, trees, and other coverage. The lighter green will be landscaped areas and will also be green areas, but this is where the stormwater management facilities are. So these will be some plantings and other newer, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's all green area and environmental areas. This is the DPW exhibit showing some of the easements, which is required, the applicants required to identify these areas, the green and the stormwater management areas, and then their utility easements. One of the comments that came up in the staff report was about on-street parking, and I think there may have been some confusion about whether on-street parking is either being provided or allowed, and it is allowed, and it is being provided. All of these little purple spaces you can see here are the areas of the on-street parking, and there's actually 26 on-street parking spaces provided on top of the garages, on top of the driveways. So the parking, we'll be getting into that in the final design and site plans and having to meet all those requirements, but I noticed that comment in the staff report, so I just wanted to make sure everyone was understood that there definitely will be parking enough and plenty of parking provided. This is sort of an overall exhibit that shows some of the circulation and flows, shows you the property here in relation to, this is a future city park area. This was actually one of Ribera donated this land to the city as part of the Anderson's Corner project, or helped acquire all of this. And then it became part of city property for a possible future park, which is in, very close to this property, and obviously would be a nice amenity for this community. And this red, I think if you look closely, you can see these red areas. These are the proposed sidewalks for the communities and make it very walkable. It connects to existing sidewalk on Contee Road, which would take you all the way over to an existing bus stop over on Bell Chase. So the sidewalk system here will complete, a large walkable area of the city and make it a walkable community. This slide, I won't go into a lot of detail. We'll definitely do it at the Planning Commission, but this highlights the various aspects of the neo-traditional overlay and how we meet it and what we're asking for. As I mentioned before, the neo-traditional overlay is for the enhanced environmental features, for the sidewalks, for the enhanced landscaping. Two things I would like to point out, which we don't need to necessarily show at this stage of the planning, because that will be dealt with the city later as more detailed plans come in. But we have received a traffic impact study that has been provided to the city. It shows that the roads are adequate to handle this traffic from this development. We did want to just provide that information as early as possible so everyone was aware of it. I also wanted to point out too that the property is 76.8 or 7.68 acres, which allows, under the RT zone, the base zoning would allow up to 76 residential units. 63 residential units are being planned as this development. So the neo-traditional overlay is not allowing additional density beyond what's allowed under the base zoning. In fact, it's quite less. It's 13 units less. This neo-traditional plan that's being sought after and requested is actually 13 units less than what is allowed under the base RT zoning density. So the last slide that I guess I will show, and then I open up for any questions, is this, and we showed this at the rezoning hearing. This property is in close proximity to Anderson's Corner, Avery Place, west side, and these are some of the architectural features of those existing newer developments. And we believe we're intending that this community will be very similar to Avery Place, which has I don't believe it used the neo-traditional overlay, but it certainly has a neo-traditional overlay feel. So that concludes my formal presentation, and I would open it up to any comments or questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. DeVito. Any questions from the council?
Mr. President.
Yeah, Councilor Walker.
All right. Mr. DeWalt.
President.
I got a question, Mr. President. I think Councilor DeWalt was going first, though.
Okay, I'll go first then. Thank you, Councilman Sitnor. Just a couple comments on some of the things that I've read and observed in the past is that at the end of the revised statement of justification by GLW, Planning, Engineering, and Surveying, it says on here, traffic circulations, traffic generation, site design, refuse disposal areas, and utility structures. The traffic generated from the proposed development has been analyzed and will not adversely impact the surrounding area. I've been a councilman for, this will be my 5th year, and every development that has come before us, that's basically the traffic studies conclusion to almost every one of them. I mean, there might be a couple little nicks in there, but you got to remember that we're spending, because of these developments and because of these traffic studies that basically say that all the time, we're spending $250,000 on our own traffic study so that we could get down to the truth about the traffic that is haunting our entire community. So just keep that in mind. There's also the other thing that I noticed was under the ordinance number 1993 from the city of Laurel that we posted. There's it says under Department of Public Works, it says that it is our understanding that no street parking will be allowed in this entire neighborhood. There are 63 proposed townhouses other than the driveway and garage for each house. Only 7 design visitor public spaces are provided in this community. Now, Mr. DeVito just changed that and he said there's up to 26 now. Well, if you count 2 parking spaces per unit, which is a very minimum of having 2 per unit, you're looking at about 133. If you add on that 26 and you know it's always going to be more, you're looking at a lot of traffic coming out onto Contee Road. And I'd like to mention that the mosque at least 3 or 4 times a week has to hire a Prince George's County sheriff in uniform and in Mark Cruiser to actually direct traffic coming out of the mosque during their 4, I believe it's 4 prayer services each day. And the only other thing I'd like to bring up is the PG County Health Department. Their results of their study. The health department permit records indicate there are approximately 15 to 20 carry-out convenience store food facilities and 1 market grocery store within a 1-mile radius of this location. Research has found that people who live near an abundance of fast food restaurants and convenience stores compared to grocery stores and fresh produce vendors have a significant higher prevalence of obesity and diabetes. That's just a little fact I'd like to bring out. There's also 2 other things in the health department, and I wish this would have happened down at Patuxent Greens, but it didn't, because I personally witnessed a lot of these 2 things, plus a lot of people that live down there noticed it. It basically says during the demolition construction phases of this project, noise should not be allowed to adversely impact activities on the adjacent properties. Indicate intent to conform to construction activity noise control requirements as specified in subtitle 19 of the Prince George's County Code. It also says during the demolition construction phase of this project, no dust should be allowed to cross over property lines and impact adjacent properties. Indicate intent to conform construction activity dust control requirements as specified in the 2011 Maryland Standard and Specification for Soil Erosion and Sediment Control. My other comment would be, are we providing the people at the mosque and the surrounding areas that they're aware of these 2 situations? One about the noise, and there are ordinances against it, and one about the dust, because I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of noise and there's going to be a lot of dust. And if you ever went down to Patuxent Greens and stood by there when those trucks are coming in and out of there, you would hear the vast amount of noise and the tremendous amount of dust that comes in and out of that. And that's all the comments I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman DeWalt. Ms. Ignor.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Mr. DeVito, can you verify to me that the undeveloped land, if you can, next to Contee Crossing, like 8 acres of land, who's now the owner of that land? Do you know of?
Okay, the undeveloped land next to Contee Crossing, which parcel are you referring to?
I was just wanted for the record.
So are you talking about, I guess this would be to the east of our site and to the east of the Islamic Center?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that would be the Islamic Center owns that property now.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Thank you, Councilman Sudno. Any more questions from the council? Council agrees introduction and first public hearing on ordinance number 1993 at the mayor and city council meeting on Monday, February 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Moving on to agenda item number 6, fleet acquisition, 2021 Ford F-50 550 XL stack body truck. Director Lee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President, Mayor, and Laurel City Council members. The Department of Public Works is requesting approval for the purchase of 2021 Ford F-550 to replace a 2004 Ford F-450 in the fleet that has exceeded its lifespan. We have an immediate need for this replacement as the current vehicle has had numerous breakdowns during this season of inclement weather and is no longer dependable. Forecasted repair costs exceed any expected residual value. Specifications: the department solicited several quotes, including from vendors on state and county contracts. The accepted quote is from Apple Ford of Columbia, Maryland, which has a state of Maryland contract number 00004504. Based on a replacement schedule, the following vehicle will be removed from fleet and replaced with the new acquisition. Vehicle number 94 will be replaced with the new 2021 Ford F-550 stake body truck. The quotes were as follows. Apple Ford, Columbia, Maryland, $62,913. Holman Ford in New Jersey, $72,429. And Bob Davison in Baltimore, $74,524. Funding is included in the FY22 CIP Fleet Replacement Program allocated through Ordinance number 1971. The net cost for this vehicle will be $62,913. It is recommended that the purchase of this vehicle be approved in the amount of $62,913 to Apple Ford of Columbia, Maryland for the purchase of the 2021 Ford F-550 stake body truck. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Lee. Any questions from the council? All right. So if the council agrees, we'll award purchase of the truck at the mayor and city council meeting on Monday, February 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. That concludes the work session agenda. The next meeting of the mayor and city council will be on Monday, February 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. This work session is adjourned.
Thank you.